Every organism needs nutrients to build tissues and to carry out life functions. Like water, nutrients pass through organisms and the environment through biogeochemical cycles. The three cycles through which carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus flow through the biosphere are especially important for life. Another element, oxygen, participates in parts of the carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus cycles by combining with these elements and cycling with them through parts of their journeys. The oxygen contained in the carbon dioxide exhaled by these sheep may be taken up by producers and re released as oxygen gas. Together, respiration and photosynthesis contribute to oxygen's cycling through the biosphere. Even though matter cycles through the biosphere and energy flows through the biosphere in one direction, they do share something in common. Neither energy nor matter can be created nor destroyed. Instead, while matter is combined and recombined with other atoms to form different compounds. So the molecules that make up life are assembled, disassembled, reassembled to make different chemicals to sustain different types of life. Carbon is a major component of all organic compounds, including the the four major biological macromolecules: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. In fact, carbon is such a key ingredient of living tissue and ecosystems that life on Earth is often described as carbon based life. Major reservoirs of carbon in the biosphere include the atmosphere, oceans, rocks, fossil fuels, and forests. That means that each of those locations contain large amounts of carbon. Carbon dioxide is continuously exchanged between the atmosphere and oceans through chemical and physical processes. Plants take in carbon dioxide during photosynthesis and use the they use the carbon to build carbohydrates. So they take in carbon dioxide, they use the carbon to build high energy carbohydrates, and then they give off the oxygen, which changes our atmosphere. Which arrow shows this process? There it is. The blue arrow. The blue arrow shows the process of photosynthesis because it is a biological process. So, what does the second half of this blue cycle show? Here we can see the carbon returning to the atmosphere as carbon dioxide gas. So, what that represents is organisms releasing carbon dioxide. Carbohydrates then pass through food webs to consumers. The plants are the primary producers. The primary producers produce the carbohydrates. Then the consumers eat the primary producers, and the carbohydrates pass from trophic level to trophic level. Many animals, both on land and in the sea, combine carbon with calcium and oxygen as the animals build skeletons of calcium carbonate. Organisms release carbon in the form of carbon dioxide gas by respiration. We do that. We inhale oxygen and we exhale carbon dioxide gas. And all other organisms do the same. When organisms die, decomposers break down the bodies, releasing carbon to the environment. Geological forces can turn accumulated carbon into carbon-containing rocks or fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas. What color arrow shows this? There it is. There are two of these arrows, one from terrestrial organisms and the other from aquatic organisms. So, why are they both blue and green? They're blue and green because geological forces turn biological or organic matter into carbon containing rocks or fossil fuels. It takes a lot of heat and pressure from the geosphere to convert parts of the biosphere into fossil fuels. Decomposition, pressure, and heat turn organic matter into fossil fuels over millions of years. Carbon dioxide is sometimes released into the atmosphere by volcanic activity. What arrow shows this? There it is. Explain that carbon dioxide can also be released into the atmosphere by human activities such as the burning of fossil fuels and the clearing and burning of forests. Carbon dioxide is a product of combustion. CO2 also dissolves in rainwater and enters the oceans. What color arrow shows this? There it is. Dissolved CO2 can be taken in by photosynthetic organisms in the ocean, or it can diffuse back into the atmosphere. What are some compounds and materials that carbon is a part of? Well, we have carbon dioxide, calcium carbonate, fossil fuels, carbonate rocks, carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. We've mentioned all of those things. This slide shows a quantitative view of the carbon cycle. The numbers in red represent stored carbon. The numbers in black are natural events, and the numbers in yellow are human contributions. The largest carbon reservoir is the deep ocean. The ocean stores a lot of carbon in it. Human contributions, which may seem small compared to the stored and natural values, really add up over time. And even though they're not a huge, a huge percentage of of contributions to the carbon cycle, they are they throw it out of balance enough to affect life. All organisms require nitrogen to make amino acids. Amino acids combine to form proteins. Organisms also need nitrogen to make nucleotides, which combine to form DNA and RNA. Many different forms of nitrogen occur naturally in the biosphere. Nitrogen gas makes up 78% of Earth's atmosphere. A lot of people think oxygen is the most plentiful gas in the atmosphere, but it's actually nitrogen gas. Oxygen is the second most plentiful gas. Nitrogen containing substances such as ammonia, nitrate ions, and nitrite ions are found in soil, in the wastes produced by many organisms, like the urine from many animals, and in dead and decaying organic matter. Dissolved nitrogen also exists in several forms in the ocean and other large water bodies. Nitrogen gas is abundant, but most organisms can't use it. In nature, there are only certain types of bacteria that can convert nitrogen gas into ammonia. This is a process called nitrogen fixation. Plants typically cannot use all that natural gas, all that nitrogen gas that's very available. So they rely on these nitrogen fixing bacteria to provide ammonia for them. Some nitrogen fixing bacteria live in soil and on the roots of plants such as peanuts and peas. Other bacteria convert ammonia into nitrate and nitrite, which can be used by primary producers to make proteins and nucleic acids. So when consumers eat producers, that nitrogen is reused to make other nitrogen containing compounds. Decomposers release nitrogen from animal wastes and dead organisms as ammonia, nitrates, and nitrites that producers may take up again. Some bacteria obtain energy by converting nitrates into nitrogen gas, which is released into the atmosphere in a process called denitrification. Many kinds of microorganisms play important roles in maintaining a healthy flow of a healthy flow of nitrogen through the biosphere. Lightning can even fix small amounts of nitrogen in a process called atmospheric nitrogen fixation. Humans have learned to fix nitrogen using an industrial process that enables us to manufacture fertilizers containing this nutrient. If excess fertilizer flows into rivers, lakes, and coastal waters, it adds nitrogen, disrupts the nitrogen cycle, and causes changes in food webs. The last cycle we're going to talk about, the last biogeochemical cycle, is the phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus is essential to life because it is part of molecules such as DNA and RNA. Unlike carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen, phosphorus does not cycle through the atmosphere. Some inorganic phosphorus remains on land in the form of phosphate rock and soil minerals, and some is found in fresh and salt water as dissolved phosphate and in phosphate sediments. In nature, phosphate is released as rocks and sediments wear down. What color shows this? Well, the wearing down of rocks is a geological process, so it's the green arrow. Some phosphate stays on land and cycles between organisms and soil. Plants bind phosphate into organic compounds when they absorb it from soil or water. Organic phosphate moves through the food web from producers to consumers. We see this in the blue arrow, or it may look purple on your screen. Some dissolved phosphate washes into rivers and streams and may make its way to the ocean. Many aquatic organisms incorporate phosphorus into biological compounds. This is also shown as a blue arrow. Humans extract phosphorus and add it to fertilizers. Excess phosphorus from fertilizer runoff can disrupt aquatic phosphorus cycles with consequences we will discuss shortly. This is shown by the orange arrow. At one time, phosphates were an important component of most laundry detergents used in the United States. So, if what we saw was that if wastewater containing phosphates from laundry detergent made its way into waterways like streams, rivers, and lakes, that would result in an increase in phosphates in water ecosystems, and it would disrupt the phosphorus cycle.